audio in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Clubhouse Degenerates. Today, we're going to cover a shitty situation in Florida. We're going to answer some of Reddit's burning questions, and we're going to talk about The Last of Us, Episode 7.
Aaron, where are you dressed up as like Charlie Cox from Daredevil?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that, does he wear these glasses?
He wears like red tinted. Yeah, he wears like red tinted glasses.
Interesting. I'm a little colorblind, so I don't think I ever really noticed that his glasses were red tinted.
Brownish red. Yeah.
Because he's Daredevil, right? Because Daredevil wears red.
He wears all red.
I got these glasses a while ago and I had lost them. And I was like, ooh, having because it does have like a sort of auburn tint to it, right?
Yeah.
I thought it would be cool. And then I didn't realize that everything would look orange.
Mm-hmm.
So you're out in the majesty of nature hike and everything looks fucking orange.
Did you go on a hike today?
No. Oh. I it's been a while since I've gone on a hike, but yeah, there's many photos of me on hikes wearing these glasses, and all I'm seeing is orange.
Yeah. I tend to think like whenever I wear sunglasses during the day, even it makes me feel sleepier just because the tint makes things feel darker, and
that's strange.
Yeah, it makes me feel like just kind of cozier and sleepier, and it lulls. I don't know what orange or even like.
Do you put on sunglasses if you're having trouble going to sleep?
No. You know what I thought about buying? Those fucking sleep masks. Those things that you put over.
Those things are legit. You've never used those?
No.
Do it.
So good. When you install the dark blinder things in my bedroom, like it helped a ton, night and day difference. But there's a little sliver of.
I know what kind of difference.
What did I say?
Night and day. I thought I was amused. It was not that, but it amused me.
Anyway, there's a little sliver of light that's still there, and it's more. I think it more annoys me. It's not so much like it bothers me. I could sleep way better than I did before, but
sleep shades are amazing though. Like the sleep masks. I mean, because I've got blackout curtains, as it's called, and I still will use a sleep mask on occasion. It's especially if I wake up in the morning having trouble falling back to sleep, throw on the sleep mask. It's just complete blackness.
So I'm going to go on a weird little tangent here.
Awesome.
Sleep mask was brought up on a podcast that I listened to.
Mm-hmm. What's the podcast?
Well, there's a few I listened to, but the one that we talked about sleep mask in was Mom's House with Tom Segura and Christina Pajitsky.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought up sleep mask, and she said, she's like, I think wearing them is bougie. Like in her mind, it's like a rich person thing to do. It's not like, and Tom's argument is like, look, if you sleep, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. It helps you sleep.
That is a rich person thing. You're poor. You wake up in the morning. You get to fucking work.
Yeah.
You don't go back to bed. Poor people.
Another again, I'm going to do another weird little curve. Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer have a podcast. Cave. I listened to that one too. I'm not saying that they copied us because they didn't. Obviously, they didn't hear our podcast.
How do you say obviously? The 47th most listened to leisure podcast in Canada. They might have been listening.
So we did our episode like how long would you say? It's like months back when we talked about Hunter S. Thompson's drug routine.
Mm-hmm.
So like 2 episodes ago, Bert and Tom talked about Hunter S. Thompson's drug routines, and I'm like, these motherfuckers must have been listening. They listened to our podcast, and they're obviously copying everything we do on our podcast. Our podcast is so good.
That's probably it.
That they had to steal our material.
To be fair, there's multiple things from other podcasts that I have copied. Not theirs, but like one of the things that when we're talking about shows, and we're going to talk about The Last of Us, I've started incorporating from there's a popular rewatchables. We're just giving everyone cast ideas that are better than ours.
Yeah, listen to other podcasts, not ours.
But I started listening to the rewatchables quite a bit. It's Bill Simmons and the Ringer Network does it. Bill Simmons is mostly known as like a sports sort of writer and commentator and sports related podcasts. But they started, I think, probably pandemic. There wasn't a lot of sports content, so they were rewatching old movies that they thought you could see again and again, hence the rewatchables. And so they like to talk about, like, they have these whole categories that they'll have. So like they'll be like, they were doing Teen Wolf, and the category is Apex Mountain, and they're like, is this Apex Mountain for werewolves? Like, no, there's other werewolf content. Or they're like, Apex Mountain for surfing guns? They're like, oh yeah, definitely. I don't know. There's a lot of these like little categories that are fun ways of talking about movies and television. I'm like, oh, I like that. I'm gonna steal that.
We didn't do surfing on Vans segment.
No, but I've started asking. So like I've started asking like, what was the best scene?
Right.
That's the sort of thing that they would do. They'll ask like, what's the most rewatchable scene in the movie?
Is there a specific genre, like a certain decade or genre, or do they just pick random movie, like older movies?
It's movies that they like. So there are a lot of 80s movies. Like the particular scene was really obsessed with sort of like not even Tom Cruise as much, but like Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. Like that's kind of his crew. They did the Fast and the Furious. They love that.
Ooh, they loved it.
They really like one of the guys they had on it. It sounded like it was his favorite movie in the world. But they do a lot of John Hughes movies, 80s movies. They've done at least a couple of the Rockies. It's just movies that they like that they think you can rewatch again and again.
I don't know how. I don't know. I was trying to think of what. I was trying to think of a way to transition over. We're just gonna say Florida Man.
Yep.
Florida man, causing mayhem when he can. Driving drunk as a rule, alligators in his pool. Look out, here comes the Florida man. Oh,
I don't know how that happened, but it started. I've never seen this pop up before. It says your mic is muted while the video is playing. Never did that before. Anyway, Florida Man. Estimated 630,000 gallons of raw sewage spilled into the Hillsborough River records show. The full scope of the January sewage spill is now coming into view more than 6 weeks later. So this is a current event, a current news article. It's not an older one that we dug up. It's one that's happening as we speak. Enough raw sewage to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool dumped into the Hillsborough River over a 1-week period in January, according to a pollution report released this week. The estimated 630,000 gallon spill began on January 10th after Tampa Electric reportedly cut the power to a Tampa apartment complex's lift station, which is a well that pumps wastewater. The utility turned off the power over the complex's non-payment, according to an investigation summary provided by the EP Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County. Documents show that the station was estimated to be without power for 7 days, and the untreated sewage from 2 apartment complexes, Morella North and Riverside Palms Apartments, emptied into the river. According to the report, the Hillsborough River is the main source of Tampa's drinking water. Oh,
yeah. I feel like this is that, classic cut off your nose to spite your face sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the electric company just does not give a fuck.
Yeah, they want money. Money,
we didn't get our. I mean, how much money do you think they could possibly be getting from one apartment complex?
Water's not an expensive utility.
No, but it wasn't the water wasn't the issue. Is if I'm understanding it, it was the electric, and because the apartment complex didn't pay their electric bill, and because they didn't pay their electric bill, they cut off power, and then this what the hell is it called? The lift station, which pumps the well water, shut off because they cut off the electricity, and then that ended up dumping all this sewage into the river, which is one of Tampa's sources of drinking water.
So just let's kind of do really rough degenerates math. If my utility bill's approximately $200, why? Because I'm running the fucking heater all day and all night. Anyway, on the high end, $200 an apartment, and let's say that there's 50 units. $10,000.
So you think it was worth in the long run to put an Olympic-sized swimming pool's worth of sewage into Tampa's main source of drinking water for $10K?
No,
that's like an old Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, especially what resulted as the outcome. If all these people's poo-poo water basically went into the river, and that's where the drinking water comes from. That's not a good thing to do. It's definitely more sizable than other sewage spills I've seen, said Joseph Keinke, who has worked at the Environmental Commission for more than 8 years. Keinke's team was first made aware of the spill on January 17th, and he went out to the scene at blah, 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 blah court that day. The lift station was 20 feet from the river, he said.
Wait, so it took them a full week to figure this out? Because didn't it? So we're unraveling the inefficiencies of Florida, because it said that the spill began on January 10th.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a full week later. They're like, oh, look, there's tons of raw sewage spilling into our drinking water. Maybe we should go investigate that. A week later.
Yeah.
Oh, that is not good, Florida.
Tampa Electric spokesperson couldn't confirm or deny whether the utility cut the power because the apartment complex failed to pay its bill, saying customer payment information is confidential. The utility also didn't answer whether it knew it was cutting power to a lift station. Keinke said he spoke with an apartment complex employee on site who was informed by the utility that the power was cut because of a failure to pay. Both apartments pay for the lift station that moves the sewage, but only Morella North pays the bill directly to Tampa Electric. Mike Bracklin, Riverside Palms property manager told the Tampa Bay Times. When the Environment Commission was investigating the utility, said it did not know that the account it shut off was servicing a lift station, according to Sam El-Rabi, director of the commission's water department.
Let's skip ahead a little bit.
Yeah, it's a long fucking.
It is a long article. Did you ever get your power shut off?
No, not that I could recall. Maybe it happened when we were kids, but I don't. Yeah,
I remember when I was a coach in Pennsylvania during the winter, I got my power shut off.
Oh, go ahead.
And it was I mean, basically what happened was like during the beginning of the season where we were traveling a bunch, and it was cold as fuck, and they I guess they posted a notice on my door, or like they didn't post it, but they just put an envelope and it blew away in the wind, and I didn't see it, and there was a lot going on, and I forgot, and like I come back after a road trip and I've got no power, and it's like 20 degrees outside, and I was just blown. I was like, can they do that? Can they just right? I mean, in the midst of a Pennsylvania winter, they're just gonna cut your power off, fucking cold-hearted.
Yeah, it sucks. The only time I've actually just thinking about it was when we were students in Whittier College. Actually, they had those rolling
blackouts,
brownouts
or brownouts. Yeah.
But yeah, those are probably the most. But we had fun when the power went out there in college because you're around your dumb friends doing stupid shit.
Dude, I'm still mad about those rolling brownouts, because we had one that happened during pledging when I was a pledge, and because of pledging, I didn't know. I was like the only one that didn't know about it. I had a 9 a.m. practice. So this is back in the olden days when you actually had an clock that like plugged into the wall. So no, I had no idea there was going to be a rolling brownout. Without an alarm clock, no fucking way was I waking up at like 8 in the morning to get to practice. And it was a 2-a-day. So I roll in for the second practice, having just slept clean through it. And this is like in the midst of pledging. We're staying up late, like all this shit. And I go to this practice on a Saturday afternoon, and they're like, "All right, just start running." And I was just running laps for like 2.5 hours. I think I must have probably run about 15 miles, because I was so mad that I was like running as hard as I could. Fucking rolling brownouts. Basically, what I'm trying to say is county scientists who tested the water quality in the river after the spill on January 17th described the water as, quote, gray and turbid. According to the report, water samples were taken upstream of the spill at River Hills Park and downstream at the 40th Street Bridge. So it's just gray and turbid water. And, quote, there will definitely be penalties for the discharge, Kinky said.
Have you ever been to Commerce City, Colorado?
Commerce City, yeah.
So obviously I might
very kind of industrial.
It is mostly industrial. My branch location is in Commerce City, but like in the vicinity of it, there's a couple water treatment plants. And if you ever have the pleasure of driving water treatment plants like during the summer when it's hot, that shit smells like shit. Like you're driving by like water by there, because it's what it is. It's the runoff water and the water they collect. It's all been pooed on and whatever, and then there's like parts of Denver, especially Commerce City, there's a lot of homeless people. What do you think they do? They just go and shower in this fucking river and take a shit in there and clean their beeholes and everything, and all that water goes into these treatment facilities, and it smells gross.
Drinking water, not something to fuck with, though.
No,
You need that.
yeah,
Very important.
yeah,
Rip to Arizona in like 20 years.
yeah. And then the heat too. Fuck, it's gonna be miserable in certain parts of Arizona for sure. That was it for the man. Poo water. Don't do it. Moving on to our next segment, we're going to be talking about Ask Reddit questions. Reddit question number 1 this week, sir. What celebrity murdered their career best?
I don't know if this is best, but this actually came up recently on the Rewatchables.
Oh,
This episode sponsored by the Rewatchables. They were doing 40-Year-Old Virgin. Oh no, sorry, Knocked Up. They were doing Knocked Up.
Heigl?
They did a couple of Apatow movies. They did 40-Year-Old Virgin. They also did Knocked Up. And it wasn't just because of her interactions on Knocked Up, but in general, I guess she was just such a, I don't know, mega bitch is right. She was distinctly unpleasant, somewhere between like cold frigid bitch and really unpleasant, but no one wanted to work with her. I mean, she was sort of poised to be like the next Julia Roberts or something like that. And specifically though, for no reason, she just talked mad shit about Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen after they'd finished Knocked Up. It's like the best thing she's ever been in, hugely successful. And she's like, I know, let me just shit all over this movie. And I think it's fair, especially at that point, I think it's fair to say Apatow is one of the most powerful producers.
I was about to say, look at the careers of how Heigl and her career. I actually looked it up after watching Knocked Up like a couple weeks back. And Heigl's career, like she's made some movies since.
Terrible movies.
But Apatow's movies, like everyone knows when you're going to go watch a Judd Apatow movie, you're going to have a good time. It's going to be funny, humorous, laughs, adult humor. Like I don't think he's made an awful. He made Freaks and Geeks, the TV show. Like he's made a ton of fantastic comedic.
And all those people though have gone on to have great careers, like Jason Segel, Jay Baruchel,
James Franco. The list goes on and on. Well, Franco, we're talking about career suicide. There's another potential name on that list. But a ton of people that have like even featured, like Danny McBride, like had a couple like super tiny minor roles in a couple of Apatow productions, and then he went on to be a big, all these people. And then Heigl, you just don't do that. You just don't talk shit about people that you with. It's bad news bears. My example is Kevin Spacey.
Oh, geez.
Dude, the dude. Okay, the dude's a fantastic, phenomenal actor, great actor. I didn't know he was gay. I didn't know he liked boys and guys.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing was like he was like coming on to some guy, like was it like an underage? Maybe I'm making this up, but he came on to some underage guy in a movie production, and Kevin Spacey was all fucking drunk or something, and just started hitting on this dude and like being aggressive. And yeah, man. I mean, prior to that, Kevin Spacey, like everything he touched, everything he did was great. There's that.
Well, I don't know about everything he touched, Mongo.
Did you ever watch House of Cards?
No,
I didn't. I watched the first episode. I just couldn't bite my teeth and sink my teeth into it. But a lot of people that have watched,
who could sink their teeth into it? It's Kevin Spacey.
Apparently, it's a great show, but because of his what he was doing at the time, they had to remove his character and him from the show, and the show continued to do okay, I think, after he left, but it wasn't the same. And just Hollywood and all these rapey fucking people. It's just weird. Something happens to celebrities where they're just in a world where they think they can do and say anything, and then before long they get caught.
It wasn't. I'm going through. There's a long list of charges against them. It's not just that they were like young guys; they were like 14, 15.
Yeah.
So he was kind of raping kids. Not great. And you know what? That's one where that was so bad. Where, if by some miracle Katherine Heigl ever makes another movie that's good, like I'll watch it. I have nothing really against Katherine Heigl in the movie. Doesn't sound like she'd be a good hang. Don't want to hang out with her. I don't think I would want to watch anything that Kevin Spacey's made. Like, even if there was a good
Really?
movie that I had enjoyed, something I just seeing him would fucking creep me out.
I think they're. Well,
I'm like, oh, it's a child rapist.
I
No,
think-
I'm out.
I think in Heigl's case, she buried herself in a hole where
You know who else buried himself in a
She-
hole?
no one was gonna
Kevin
want.
Spacey.
No one's gonna want to work with her. With the possibility that, like, okay, I work with this broad, and then after we film, we wrap up production, she starts talking shit about me. Like, no, I don't want to work with that broad. Kevin Spacey, I guess if you're a female, you're like, well, I'm not threatened by him because he's not going to try to fuck me. But if you're a young dude, you're like, no thanks, no, I don't. I don't know. I feel equal about both. They're both kind of.
I bet if
Shitty
Katherine
people.
Heigl just like sincerely apologized to Seth Rogen, he'd be like, oh, okay. Like, I feel like Seth Rogen's not the type to hold a grudge.
Probably not him, but who's to say that Apatow doesn't, or other cast members of the movie. But let's see what some of the Redditors are about to say about that question. As soon as my mouse starts working. User aggressive signal 483 writes, Gary Glitter, 70s UK glam rock star, faded into obscurity. Thing was, it was at the time when his peers were having a resurgence. He could have been a success. He would have been successful again until he took his laptop into repair, and the shop reported to police all of the child porn on it. Gary Glitter is that guy that does that one song, hey, and apparently it was
Wait, how's it go again?
exactly. Apparently, when it was reused for the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, it was controversial that they were using this, child porn dude's music again. Because prior to that song was like almost a theme song at like sporting events, and it was all over the place. But yeah, R.I.P. Gary Glitter. And then someone just posted right below him. He just got released from prison in February, according to Wikipedia. User Saint Vincent Adult Man writes, Charlie Sheen. He was making $2 million per episode playing himself on a 2.5 Men. Then he went off the rails by insulting the creator and talking about winning and tiger blood and all other goofy stuff that Charlie Sheen did.
Contracting AIDS,
Did he get AIDS? I thought it was other STDs.
But yeah, I think I had AIDS.
Fucking Charlie Sheen. One more pick. Let's see. I don't know who that is. Last one I'll read. User Square3481 writes, O.J. Simpson went from being a beloved running back and actor to a pariah. He must have gotten away with murder, but he'll live the rest of his life as a figure of ridicule. That's a good one. Chop off your.
I still
wife's
remember
head.
that was such a big deal. Like, I think kids now will not really understand what it was like pre-internet, right? When things didn't tend to get on this sort of like national scene, right?
Right.
There wasn't 5,000 different media outlets. There weren't websites. You weren't getting tweets of like, oh, this happened. So when something really big happened, it was like national or global. Like everyone was talking about it. And I remember when the verdict broke, it was like I was in our middle school science lab, and the science teacher was like, "Oh, OJ, they found him innocent," and it was like everyone around the whole school was like buzzing because this was such a huge cultural phenomenon in a way that I don't think anything really hardly can be anymore.
Another thing is too, like the duration of the story back then. Right now, with social media being what it is, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all these fucking things, there's like an immediacy of it being in front of our faces, and then a week later, underneath some other crazy story that pops out. Whereas back then, like the media did a really good job, but I say that tongue in cheek, like a really good job of like that story expanded. It felt like it survived for like months and months and months. Like that was like a headline for a long time. Whereas, if he had chopped his wife's head off today, a couple weeks later, we'd forget about it because some other story would pop up and bury that story. So weird times. Ask Reddit question number 2.
Mm-hmm.
What is your first thought about someone when they have a Confederate flag sticker on their car?
There's sort of two things that will come up. The first is why, like, why would you do that? That is a defunct flag, and it's like you guys lost, right? Like even if you if you're still like supporting some sort of like separatist movement, and you're like, we all got to just go our own separate ways, and the north part of America has gone to shambles, and we have to preserve our values. It's like, what, that side of the war, sorry, the Confederacy like lost. Like why are you repping an army that got their fucking asses handed to them?
Yeah,
that's not great. And there's that whole of like, well, it's our history. That logic never really completely made sense to me, because like there's plenty of historical things that you don't need to put on the back of your truck. And let's be honest, it's a truck. If they're repping a Confederate flag, it is a pickup truck, probably lifted. They
probably have a flag hanging, like big old American flag hanging out the top of their hood. Or
yeah,
something.
They got the double up back wheels. But here's the other thing, though. I feel like more often than not, it's when someone's like a crazy aggressive driver, and then like they're stupid and they cut you off. And sometimes I'll get those like little momentary sparks of like road rage where I'm like, dude, I want to fucking follow this guy and beat the shit out of him. And then you see the Confederate flag and you're like, oh, they've got a gun in there. There is no way that someone has a Confederate flag sticker or whatever on their truck. It's like, again, it's always a truck, and they also are not carrying a gun. Those two go hand in hand. So like, I guess the first thought is, why the fuck would they do that? Thought number two, oh, they're packing.
I have a bias. I have to admit that one of my favorite shows growing up when I was a kid was Dukes of Hazzard, and General Lee was this neon orange Dodge Charger, with a Confederate flag right in the front of the hood. And so again, my bias says there's nothing wrong with it. I could honestly, if you're going to be sporting the Confederate flag, to me, your intelligence quotient is probably several notches below. Like, I just assume you're kind of dumb. Politics and all that stuff aside, fucking flag, who cares? You're not offending me. You're probably offending other people that had a closer tie to their family background or history or whatever. Maybe their or grandparents were enslaved or whatever on one side of the army or whatever. But to me, I've got no personal tie to it, so I don't really get offended when someone has it. I just think you're dumber if you have one.
I don't get offended by it. It's more, I don't want to get shot. Practically, this person is carrying a gun. It's like they're like an early I'm carrying a gun and possibly don't know how to use it warning sign.
Who I could be wrong. I don't want one of our brothers. I'm not going to mention his name, but he's very tall. His mug name was Shaft. I think at one point he used the Confederate flag on things.
Yeah, it makes sense. That tracks.
But yeah, and I
actually remember meeting his dad. Now that I think about it, his dad did kind of have like a Hank Hill vibe to him. Did you ever meet his dad?
I don't think I have.
It was like because they were in Northern California, right? I think so. I think that's where it was. But he did have that like Midwestern, like, they had a really nice too. Now that I recall.
Good for them. Let's see what some of the Redditors have had to say about that question. User which Riano Nami, I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to say, writes, as an Australian, I am often confused because there are really fucktard Aussies who do this. Aussies? All right. Australian rednecks. Pretty cool. User Sorsha Daikini writes, I loathe seeing it in my home state of Minnesota. The 1st Minnesota Infantry Regiment had an 82% casualty rate in Gettysburg. Oh. A lot of posts before following that. User 19 Thanatos 83 writes, that is a weird thing to do here in Germany. Huh. Do you think other okay, so like the swastika was borrowed by, certain religious Asian sects by it was stolen by the Germans and used and they created, obviously you look at the swastika now, you're like bad, bad, bad. It's a horrible sign. Do you think the Confederate flag uh is like carried in other countries to express their, like, I guess their bigotry of like anti-black? You think there's like an anti?
I don't know if it's anti-black. I bet there are some probably teenagers or something like that in other countries who are just trying to be controversial and edgy who rock Confederate flags. I would be shocked if that doesn't happen, because basically what it comes down to is teenagers are fucking stupid,
Yeah.
and they like to, it's like, give me attention. I want to get a rise out of people. And I think that would do it in some other places, but I don't know.
Last one I'll read. User My Monkeys Fly writes, Missouri was not even part of the Confederacy, dumbass. For reference, I live in Missouri, and they are all over down here. So, yeah, I tend to think it still tends to be more of a Southern thing to want to rock it, like to sport the flag.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you find it everywhere, but I think supremacist groups use that still, right? Don't they? Like white supremacist groups.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is definitely some kind of tie to racism, but I just think you're dumber if you have it. That's it for Ask Reddit. We're moving on to our final segment where we're going to talk about The Last of Us, episode 7, titled "Left Behind."
All right, so let's very briefly recap, and then we'll get into some of the aspects of this episode. So it is titled "The Best Night of Your Life," and
What? It's called "Left Behind," episode 7.
Is it? No.
I looked it up right before we started.
Maybe you're right.
Maybe you're looking at episode 8. Let's see. Episodes. Yeah. Best Night of Your Life. I don't even see an episode titled that. Yeah, on IMDb it's called Left Behind.
Okay, Left Behind. The recap that I'm looking at called it Best Night of Your Life. I believe you, Mondo. So episode 7, Left Behind. Dude, that just fuck whole flow. I'm gonna start again. The Last of Us episode 7, titled Left Behind, is primarily a flashback episode. We get to learn a little bit more about Ellie before she met Joel, what good old Ellie was up to.
Uh-huh.
So the episode does start where she's trying to care for a grievously injured Joel, flashes back, and we see a little bit of Ellie's life in the Fedra, like boarding school, basically. And
Yeah.
it evoked a military boarding school.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, how much does that suck that even in the apocalypse, you still have to run laps in gym?
You're like, fuck, there's crazy mushroom zombies all over the place here. So you're still making me fucking do this push-ups and sit-ups bullshit.
And I'm not gonna lie, Mondo, I was a little bit disappointed that it looked exactly like normal gym class. Like, I feel like they should expanded for the apocalypse, right? They should have been running laps, but like, students dressed up as zombies jumped out and you had to dodge them. Or like, if you were going to run an apocalypse gym class, how would you tweak it?
There'd be some kind of like weird obstacle course with weird shit and like, like don't like swinging, like the American Gladiators, how they would have them run through crazy, even like the Nickelodeon shows like Guts and all that other crap.
No ifs, ands, or buts.
No ifs, ands, or so the idea is there's all this shit coming at you, you got to dodge it all. So you'd have to run through the labyrinth and not touch shit.
Well, I think they should really lean in heavy on tag. Get really, learn how to change directions, zigzag. Maybe you can't. Some of those runners are really fast. The zombie runners. So you got to learn how to change directions, use your environment. That would be great. But no, you're just running simple ass apps. And was really disappointed in that aspect. I mean, what else if you're trying to run like military zombie apocalypse boarding school? Like, what would you do?
I know you joked about not wanting to run laps, but you would definitely have to have cardio as one of your prior. Like in Zombieland, the fucking what's his name's character talks about his rules of survival, and rule number 1, I believe, was cardio.
Always double tap was like
double
3,
probably, sure. So yeah, you'd have to for sure have peak cardio condition because you don't ever know how far you got to run or for how long you got to run away from infected fucks.
So like what subjects are you teaching them? Because it does come up a lot where Ellie knows something about the past and Joel's like, how'd you know that? She's like, well, there's books in the, and she apparently read it during her Fedra schooling.
Yeah.
But it's like, are you teaching them like calculus? I don't think so. I don't know if that's really the most pressing subject matter. So like, what is your apocalypse curriculum look like in zombie high school?
Chemistry and like the study of mycology and all that shit for sure has got to be really high up on there, obviously, because it's affecting their world. So they need to know that shit for sure.
But are you okay? So is it like practical chemistry? I mean, because when I took chemistry in high school, learning about like covalent bonds and all these things that were not theoretical, but were more sort of to understand chemistry as a whole. Like I think I'd be teaching them how to create pipe bombs and shit like that for defense. It's like, well, you mix 1 part nitroglycerin, and I mean, how would you tweak chemistry class for the apocalypse?
Yeah, you definitely have to have. You got to trim the fat of all the stuff that they teach you in school and stick to the stuff that's really pertinent. Because,
like what?
Again, like you said, building pipe bombs, or even how to like filter water, how to like water filtration.
Ooh, that'd be a good one.
So you can survive. Like botany, how to grow shit. How to grow food and plants and vegetation. Again, mycology, chemistry to study like how all these zombie fucks that are running around, how that happened and what can we potentially do to avoid further catastrophe.
I feel like we should do that in high school now.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's the other.
We're pretty close to all that happening.
But like, teach them a little bit of electrical engineering, or at least how to be an electrician. So when circuit breaker shorts out, you can go fix it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like those like nuts and bolts practical things would be way more important. And when you think of that, we don't learn anything useful in high school. Like what is something that you learned in high school that you still use on a regular basis? Is there anything you can think of?
There's probably things that are like on the fundamental level that
like what?
Common math.
Yeah, but I know that stuff I learned in elementary school. I learned addition, subtraction, multiplication in elementary school, algebra in middle school. I still use algebra a little bit, but the stuff I learned in high school, I'm not using like advanced geometry. I'm not using trigonometry.
Yeah. There's very few. That you're right. There's a lot of stuff, and even to a certain degree, there's even stuff in college that's kind of like, why am I being taught this shit? I'm not ever going to use it in a practical sense. The education system, if you will, would be completely different. I think it would have to be again stripped down to stuff that actually pertains to their immediate survival and continuation as a species.
See, in college, I felt a little better about it because I was like, oh, I chose to learn this useless shit. That was my choice. I willingly signed up and then attended Victorian poetry. And we're in high school, I was forced to go to whatever the equivalent was. Although I still, this is a quick aside, Victorian poetry, absolutely useless class. We'll never use it, but that's still one of the probably top 10 funniest things that ever happened in college. We had this really, really old English teacher named Anne Kiley, English professor. And I mean, she was probably like pushing 80 at that point. And we were reading a poem by, I want to say Charlotte Bronte, but it was this whole metaphor about how there was an apple tree and you couldn't pick the apples too soon. You had to wait till they were ripe. And it was the apple were like her virginity. And so she I'm laughing even thinking about it. She would go, oh, and I can't remember. Somebody said something in class, and she says like, "Well, what would you use apples for anyway?" And then Connor Nelson, you might recall, just wasn't even thinking, and he just goes, "To make applesauce." And then this like very prim and proper 80-year-old woman goes, well, yes, her apples were smashed. like it came out of nowhere. This like really legit sexual joke from 80-year-old Ann Kyler. We could not stop laughing for probably like 4 or 5 minutes. Shout out to Ann Kyler. She's probably dead now. Like many of the people in The Last of Us. So anyhow, they Ellie's in her dorm room with all her 90s paraphernalia. She gets a knock on the door from what was her friend's name? I don't even remember the character's name.
The girl?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I just closed that window.
That's okay. Her friend / lesbian love interest, and the friend says that she's gonna
Riley. Sorry, Riley.
Riley is gonna take Ellie. Riley and Ellie. I can just see a big heart carved into like the rotting corpse of a zombie, and it says heart, Ellie and Riley. Riley's gonna take Ellie for the best night of her life in the mall.
So, little quick. So Riley was Ellie's friend. She went to school with her at this military training thing in Fedra.
BFF, yeah.
Her BFF, and it's basically what was it called in Nazi Germany? The young kids they were training the kids to be Nazis.
Yeah, man.
It was a name of, I forget the name of it, something about something kind, or I don't know. But anyways, the idea is Fedra's got all these little kids, and they're basically getting them ready to be.
There is Hitler Youth, but
Sure, the Jung something. There's a name for it, but whatever.
Jugend? That would be youth. Hitler Jugend?
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so Fedra is obviously this like militaristic governing body, and they got all this school of kids that they're basically trying to groom into becoming.
Whoa, no, not like that, guys. I know we talked about Kevin Spacey earlier. They're trying to turn them into soldiers.
And her friend Riley basically disappears, and Ellie has no idea what's happened to her. Fast forward, Ellie in a fist fight with some of the bullies at the school, and in the middle of the night, Riley breaks into Ellie's apartment or bedroom or whatever, and they catch up. And Ellie's like, "I thought you were dead. What the fuck happened?" Blah blah blah. And so yeah, Riley's like, "Hey, we're gonna go. I want to show you something. I got some surprises for you." And she basically takes Ellie into like this abandoned mall that otherwise they would have thought would have been like completely overrun by infected. Turns out it wasn't. Asterisk.
So, and she Riley describes it as she's going to show Ellie the 4 wonders of the mall. Was it 4? I think, right?
It started off as she adds a 5th. Whatever.
Right. So what there was the arcade. There's the photo booth.
Yep.
What were the other 2?
The first one was a carousel.
Oh, right. The like horse carousel. I can't even remember seeing one of those in a mall, but it makes sense.
And then the 4th one was
the costume shop.
The costume shop.
I did think it was funny though, because Ellie thought the first wonder was the escalator.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's like
it's like moving stairs. Oh my God! Look, if I walk up on an escalator, it looks like I'm not moving.
It is funny that there's all that kind of stuff that we just take for granted.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, obviously a fucking escalator, but if you grew up in the apocalypse, you probably never saw one. Have you ever heard the Mitch Hedberg joke about escalators?
Probably.
Absolute classic. He's like, I love an escalator because an escalator can never break down. It can just temporarily become stairs.
Yeah.
You never see an escalator out of order sign. Just escalator, temporarily stairs. Thank you for the convenience. But so she was super hyped about that. The carousel, not as much. And then she went ham on the arcade.
Yes.
Would if you were gonna put together your personal 4 wonders of the mall, what would they be? Would the arcade be one of them?
So you got to understand, without them explaining it, but I think Ellie was one of those that was born during shit's already going on here. So she was born into.
She's like Bane.
The technology, airplanes flying, all this shit.
merely raised in the apocalypse. I was born into it.
That was okay. That was the that whole quote. I was born into it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Ellie, there's a lot of things that again, like you and I, we say we take for granted. Ellie, all this stuff is new to her. She's heard of airplanes and she's heard of escalators, and she's not
and Mortal Kombat apparently.
Mortal Kombat.
But like I said, so what would be your personal four wonders of the mall?
If there was like an outdoor camping hunting store, that would be one of them. Like going into like, oh my god, look at all this cool camping hunting
I
shit.
feel like that store would have been raided long ago, though.
Probably.
It's like actually, you know what store would have everything still on the shelves? It's Hot Topic. Like in the apocalypse, they're like, what the fuck do I need? What even is in Hot Topics anymore? When's the last time you've been in one?
A long time ago. They sell shirts.
Like I'm an edgy teenager shirt. I probably would like Hot Topic.
Yeah. Yeah, I would maybe an arcade too, just for nostalgia's sake. You know, the food court. I mean, obviously the food's probably not going to be there anymore. But like, oh my god, look, this is how they make Panda Express.
I would definitely, instead of the carousel, I would have swapped out. Have you ever been to one of those malls where they have like the really, really high end massage chairs?
Oh yeah, I've never used them, but I've seen them, and I'm like, oh, those look
they're nice.
They look cool as shit.
I can't remember. I was waiting for someone in a mall, and I had like 20 minutes to kill, and I just was like dumping dollar bills into that thing. Worth it, worth it. That would be one of my wonders of the mall. Is there anything else that you would swap in?
I would probably want to visit, like, if they still have them, because not a lot of malls have them these days, but like music stores, like where they sell CDs and records and tapes and shit. Like I'd want to see, because like Ellie does have her Walkman, so I would want to go into that and like, oh my god, check out all this cool music.
Might not be rated, yeah.
You know, I'd go with that and steal all this cool music. Bookstores probably, you know, because bookstores, when there's no electricity, no lights, that kind of shit, when you're really operating by lantern or whatever, or campfire, having plenty of shit to read and kind of keep occupied would be fun.
You can read it with your flashlight that you have to shake every 2 minutes. I actually love that. That's like one of the details from the game that they took over. Your flashlight was constantly going out in the game. You had to actually physically shake the controller.
Yeah, that
cracked me up. I was watching Mondo play that part of the game.
I'm like, what am I supposed to do here?
And I'm like, shake it. He's like trying to shake the. I'm like, no, shake the actual controller. You're like, oh my god,
stupid. Fucking PlayStation and this goofy fucking peripherals.
So the whole thing climaxes. I think figuratively, almost literally, at the costume store where, you know, there were already some signs that Ellie had some of the lesbian tendencies. And I think this is fully confirmed. And it's like she has her first kiss, and then they're immediately attacked by a zombie.
Yeah.
Just no room for a romance in the apocalypse.
It basically breaks down the origin as to how Ellie got infected, and they don't discuss that in the video game. This entire episode is not part of the video game, which to me, like, it was all new. Everything that happened, I was caught off guard by every little detail, jump scare, whatever, because it's not you don't do this in the video game. And the fact that it sheds some light as to Ellie's, you know, her desire to be with women. Did you read any of the critic reviews and stuff like that about the episode?
No.
So apparently there's like a section of people that are like up in arms, all pissed off that this is just another woke agenda example shoved down our throats.
Wait, how so?
Because it's a lesbian, young lesbian,
right?
One's African American, one's white. So they just kind of like, again, I agree with those people, but there is a segment of they're like, oh, this is just current news or current TV shoving these agendas down our fucking throat. I have to say I disagree, because this stuff actually it ties into the story. And again, Last of Us Season 2, when that happens, I haven't played the video game, but obviously in that one, it's revealed even further that she's a lesbian and all this stuff. So this is like providing backstory to stuff that actually unfolds within the plot. So it makes sense that they're including this stuff and why it has to happen. Whereas I think other movies, shows, whatever, you can tell when they're forcing something and there's an agenda behind it, and then there's this one where it's just part of the plot. It's part of the story. It adds to the story. I don't think.
Yeah, I am surprised to hear that about. I thought if anything there would be more of that with the Bill and Frank episode.
And I'm sure there was. I'm sure there was.
But yeah, I mean this is a documented part of the story. Obviously, they expanded on it, but it is canon from the games.
Yeah.
That Ellie's a lesbian, so this isn't surprising at all. It adds a little bit more color.
And this game was what 2004 was the first iteration of Last of Us,
something like that.
So again, this was way before the term woke and woke culture and all this shit was even a thing. Like, so there is no, like, I don't buy into that. This is like someone trying to shove some kind of woke political thing down our throat. I disagree. I think
although the Last of Us 2 was a lot more recent, and people did get up in arms about a lot of things in that game. They were very upset that Ellie was a lesbian then, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. They didn't like the fact that one of the antagonists became a protagonist and she was a muscly woman. That made them really upset. They got their little boxers in a bunch.
But yeah,
yeah. I will say this: if you have a problem with this aspect, you need to look inside, and you're dumb as fuck. Like, just
yeah. Again,
that's a you problem, not a Last of Us problem.
You can't compare what they did with us here in Last of Us and what people did with the one scene in Infinity War, like with all like that was clearly agenda specific, like trying to throw something at you that didn't need to be there.
That was a thing to do fan service, and the fans were like, "No, we don't want this.
Yeah.
This was not a service, Marvel.
Yeah.
Stop it."
Again, that was an example of them seeing some kind of agenda down your throat. Another good example of where it shows like woman power, but they did it subtly and they didn't do it like, here it's women and they're awesome, is the I don't remember Lorian or Boba Fett, but there's a almost an entire episode dedicated to women that were just like badasses, and they broke into like this high security thing and they got in, got out, and it was just happened to be those girls. But again, it was subtle. It wasn't like, hey, women power, rah 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 rah. It was pertained to the plot.
I think back to your original point, as long as that flows naturally from the course of the story,
yeah,
like it's fine.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be an issue. This flows naturally from the story. But the one thing, and I'm interested to see if this does change the story moving forward. Game, we didn't get this expanded backstory. We just knew that Ellie and her friend went to a mall. Her friend got infected. They said, "Let's go in together." Great line. And this is a little bit different though, because in this version, her friend has run away to join the Fireflies. The Fireflies have stationed her in this mall, which allowed her to both get very good at Mortal Kombat and build pipe bombs. And then she gets infected and dies. So does Ellie have beef with the Fireflies now?
I don't know. I mean, I think she had a beef with because remember, Ellie's being taught all the stuff she knows by Fedra. So it's you're looking at it through a single lens. And when her lesbian girlfriend is obviously Ellie's like, fuck this, you don't know what the Fire's doing, they're killing people, blah 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 blah. She gets pissed off at Riley because she sees her building pipe bombs. Well,
and it doesn't seem like this would really enforce that. Like from her perspective, it's like, oh, these Fireflies got best friend / potential future lover killed. What the fuck?
It could be. It could. Again, it's like when you do something, it's not like when someone quits a job, it's not because of one reason they quit. It's a number of small things that build up to, now fuck this place, I'm done, I'm quitting.
How are we doing on time?
We have 55 minutes.
Okay. Let's wrap this up a little bit. We covered the wonders of the mall. Was there like a single scene that like really stood out to you?
I'd have to think. God, we watched this fucking episode together, and I'm trying to remember all the stuff that happened in and out of the episode. No, nothing really stood out. Again, good, fantastic acting performances. by both. And there's like the awkward lovey-dovey because Ellie's still unsure of whether or not she can quote unquote come out to her friend, and her friend is like, I don't know if she's oblivious to the fact that Ellie has a crush on her or not. So there's like a little bit of innocence behind their cutesy lovey-dovey thing that's going on. It's not like, I don't roll my eyes, I don't groan at it.
Yeah, I think teenagers being awkward around potential love interests would still be a thing in the apocalypse. I
Yeah.
think that is, as long as there are teenagers, that will still be a thing, regardless of the scenario.
Yeah, and Bella giving her friend like little puppy dog eyes when she looks at her. Like, there's obviously, you start seeing it like, oh, okay, she likes her more than just as her best friend. She like she's attracted to her, and I don't know. I thought it was tender. It was nice. They pulled it off great. It would have been forcing it down our throat if they would have made Riley a transgender like that. Like, that'd have been like, okay, fuck you guys. No offense to transgender people. I'm just saying, like, when you snowball all kinds of things into one and then pack it in and throw it down our, like, that's going a little too far.
So there may be a transgender character in The Last of Us 2.
Possibly. Who whatever. Okay.
there is.
Awesome.
What did you think about the actress who played Riley's performance? I'm trying to find her name. She's popped up in a ton of stuff now.
Her name is Storm Reed. Cool ass name.
Storm Reed. Dang.
Yeah,
Her parents did not fuck around.
A good actress. Good. She did a good job. For the minor role she plays in this show. I mean, it's obviously she gets infected, she dies. Ellie survives. An up and coming young actress. She did a good job.
I want to just to give some context. I want to pull up her filmography because she's been all over the place. So just recently, I'm going to go from most recent back.
Okay.
The Last of Us, Euphoria, When They See Us, Chicago PD, and then it starts to trail off there. And then movies, she was in The Suicide Squad. She was Idris Elba's daughter.
I don't remember that. Okay.
Remember the John Cena Suicide Squad?
Yeah.
Remember Idris Elba had a daughter that hated him?
Mm-hmm.
She was his daughter. She's in Invisible Man, A Wrinkle in Time, and Santa's Boot Camp. Oh, she was in 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah.
She's been all over the place. For a young actress, she's got a budding career.
Yeah. No, did a good job.
And you know what? Props to her for being fine with taking like kind of a one-off role. I mean, I guess when you look at it, Nick Offerman took a role very similar to this in terms of scale and scope, but she was a more of a background character in Euphoria, and here she's got a one episode, but I think it was a good episode.
Yeah.
As far as the flashbacks, how would you compare this to the Bill and Frank episode?
Neck and neck. I don't see one as better than the other. I think they were good. I think I needed to see this more than I needed to see the Nick Offerman backstory. I think this, because Ellie's the central character. It's her and Joel. I think this had more meat to it than the Bill and other guy.
I mean, I think there was a little bit more meat in the Bill and Frank episode. Definitely more sausage.
Okay, but no, I again, apparently I just saw this right now on IMDb, but they did an addition, like a patch to The Last of Us, the video game. They actually did portray this backstory piece of Ellie in The Last of Us when they remade it.
Oh, okay. That's actually still on my PlayStation.
Yeah,
because I never played that.
Yeah. So they did do this scene in the video game, but it was a later added thing to it. Got it.
Maybe
and I
didn't sometime.
And I didn't play it. You didn't. So this was all new, all fresh, and it felt natural. It felt good to know more about Ellie, how she got infected, instead of like wondering like how the fuck did she get bit and survive. Obviously, we don't know how she survived. How she happened to. Maybe it's something in her blood that had a genetic disposition to fight off that virus thing. But no, I needed this episode to get that little bit of information.
I really liked it for that part. I think as like a singular piece of content, the Bill and Frank episode was a lot better. I mean, that whole thing was just an encapsulated story unto itself, really well acted, blah, blah, blah. But if you remember, my complaint was I didn't really feel like it informed the story of Joel and Ellie as much, where
Yeah.
this completely serves Ellie's story.
Yeah.
So Last of Us episode 7 is great.
Yeah.
I am both anticipating and cringing a little bit for episode 8 because shit's gonna get weird.
Yeah, because we only have this episode and one more, right? It's only a 9-episode season, I believe.
Yep.
So we're down to the last 2. Tonight, episode 8 comes out. Next week, episode 9. So hold on to your horses. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, because if you don't hold on to your horses, some motherfucker might eat them.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add to this episode? Anything else you want to before we wrap it up?
No, I gotta piss super bad, so I'm ready for.
All right, guys.
for the
Well,
stand.
thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We love you guys. We'll talk to you guys in a week. Bye-bye.